2 people died at that traffic light yesterday.
Yes. That's what I said, that no politician will risk burning their votes. What would be the point of going back for people to vote for you if you were not treating their issues with urgency? It will be remarkable for us to watch and do nothing whilst these things were going on. It's beyond a year since we came. In the beginning, when we came, there were no traffic lights on that road. My first struggles with that road was to get traffic lights installed. And the question was that there was no space or right to access the road because the road had not been completed and handed over.
The road has not been handed over.
I was very concerned about this. The roads minister is extremely concerned.
You sat down with the
funds. Oh, yes. Please.
You are buying his answers?
Lives are at stake. I don't want to create the impression that... but there are many issues. Anyone had the same problems when it was done. We are having the same problems here. There are also other problems the minister had, including areas where there are no roads at all. The roads are desperately dangerous. You understand what I'm saying? The minister has to have a global picture. So, where we are now, government is securing all manner of funds to invest in infrastructure. The minister assures me that there's a major program to go into 4 bridges across a certain broad spectrum of roads. The question they've had with this is whether or not the design can be sustained, or it should be changed entirely, or new ones should be put in entirely. There are design issues, major design issues. And then it goes back to whether or not originally it was well planned. And as it was being constructed, the input that went in with technical specs and all that, there are complex issues. It is not realistic for a politician to sit back and allow deaths to continue. It is not acceptable. No death under any circumstances is acceptable. But in particular, preventable deaths. And deaths from accidents are preventable. If it's in a car, it means maybe the driver was careless or otherwise. If it's on a road, it means either the road was poor or again the driver misunderstood himself. This road doesn't even have road furniture, signs and otherwise. It was not complete. There was an attempt to lighten it. You remember in 2016, street lights were put on it. As I speak, those lights, if they were functioning, we will not have so many deaths in the night.
Did you check why they're not functioning?
Yeah, I followed up.
What response did you
get? The usual, this is the usual things about the resources and things. We really have to deal with certain fundamental issues to do with our society and the way we approach things, particularly maintenance. We must be consistent about maintenance. We must realize that we need to budget and be proactive about maintenance. Maintenance shouldn't be after it is completely damaged, so that all the time when we are trying to restore something, we have to go back and projectize and create an entirely new project which requires us to seek new funds as if we are starting afresh. We must have a culture where we budget and sustain those budgets to keep things that we have already going. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. So it's always a question of trying to resource new opportunities. And that, for a going situation, is not acceptable. So it is difficult. The people are frustrated. Somebody must be blamed.
They are blaming you.
Exactly.
They are blaming your MC.
And I'm pointing at myself. Somebody must be blamed. So I'm pointing at myself. So I'm in a convenient situation to be blamed because I'm the MP. So it is a necessary duty of the government, of which I'm a part, to ensure that we solve that problem and solve it comprehensively once and for all.
There's a campaign to march in Adenta on Monday. Are you aware?
I'm aware. And I think they should. It's a democratic right. I think they should. It's a right in a democracy to bring notice to matters that concern citizens. It's a community action. I commend the leadership as long as it doesn't get violent. For me, that's the bottom line. But marching to demonstrate your needs, marching to demonstrate your concerns is the best way at a certain level of expressing citizen frustration with government action or inaction. The government will take notice. The government has taken notice because I'm aware. But we cannot say that because we are aware, because we have taken notice, you must stop. Citizen action must be allowed to continue.
The people require instant response to this? And you seem to be given
instant. Instant. It's not easy.
Instant.
If it was instant, if it could be done yesterday, I'll be happy because I need their votes.
But can't there be short-term solutions? Perhaps get the police there to help the people, better the traffic control.
Please, it goes beyond that. Have you been on the road? Where do you place police to do what? In the night?
I spoke to a couple of your residents yesterday. They said the only time they see police there is 1, to tow cars, 2, to pick up dead bodies.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is that where do you place police on that stretch? To do what? To slow down traffic? To do what? Now that the spotlight is so strong on it, maybe agencies concerned, road safety, highways, otherwise, may be looking at very short term. So, but I see very little in terms of short term that can resolve the fundamental issues. One, the lights are already installed, for example, and ought to be on at night. That's already a solution in place, which is failing because of maintenance. 2, traffic lights have been installed and lost to accidents and careless driving and otherwise. That is a solution that was okay, but now you go to SDA Junction and it's a lottery. I pass there daily. It's a lottery.
There's a school at that junction.
Yes, there's a school there. It's a lottery. I also pass there. I am as frustrated as the residents. I'm saying that this is a maintenance solution that sometimes we underestimate the power of the bureaucracy to slow us down. Sometimes we underestimate the power of the bureaucracy to limit the ability of politicians to deliver. You understand? If traffic lights have been put there, why should they not be there any longer? You see, that's a very important thing. We have to look at the entire public sector working practices. You know, there are issues. Traffic lights we fought for traffic lights to be put there. They are not there any longer. Yes, there's motorist indiscipline. A motorist knocks down a traffic light in this country. What happens? A motorist knocks down a street light in this country. What happens? What are the protocols? Who is responsible? Who determines who pays the replacement cost? These are major issues that we just underplay, and then something happens, and of course the politician is in the firing line and he gets the fire. It's fair because we ought to get the fire. We are the leaders. But I am saying that there are complex issues. The short-term solutions are already there on that road. The question is whether the bureaucratic will is there to keep them there. Because there are lights installed already. Why are they not working? The traffic lights are there already. Why are they not working? Why are they all? When the traffic lights are working and the lights are working in the night, those are major short-term solutions to any situation on that road. As we look at getting the footbridge matter resolved, whether we are keeping the current ones or we are changing the design and bringing new ones, and sometimes even whether or not they are even appropriately placed. But there are issues with some of the placements as well. You see, so the long-term issues, we cannot avoid them because we need to finish that road and take it over and run it properly for the benefit of the community. It's a major highway. But before then, we don't need to underplay the complexity of the situation that we have. But there's urgency. People are at risk. Many have lost their lives. Some will continue to lose their lives if action is not taken. So the short-term solutions, I think, are solutions that we need to desperately put in place and hold some bureaucrats accountable for those solutions.
Like the Ghana Highway Authority.
The Ghana Highway Authority is the primary agency responsible for that highway.
They refuse to speak. Are they open to you? You are the member of parliament.
Well, that's why I'm saying that. I started by saying there are certain things you
No, it's an opportunity for your people to see that you are fighting for them.
You see, every fight is in a context. Fighting doesn't mean antagonistic. Yes, like you don't have to be antagonistic before you show that you are fighting. You can also facilitate. What we need to facilitate and cut out is bureaucratic inertia. Bureaucrats are virtually faceless. The government is a government. We are all the government. The government has servants. Those servants serve and move on. Those servants serve through structures. They sign files, they push files, there are procedures they follow. You know what I'm saying? So you go into a place like the Ghana Highway Authority. You don't just walk in and somebody says, oh yeah, tomorrow we'll find money and we'll come and do it. And no. You don't get that. There are issues. Explanations will be given. They will tell you about the legacy issues they have. They will tell you about the contractual issues. They will tell you about the design issues. And above all, bottom line is that the money is where they will land. They will land on and end at where the money is and others. But like we are saying, my concern, short term, is that already the short-term solutions are there. Why are we not maintaining that? And that is where my frustration is, if I am permitted to be frustrated. Why are the lights not working? Why are the traffic lights not working? that is immediate. That is immediate, and even in the current state ought to be maintained because they've been installed. So why allow them to break down? That is where you find that the bureaucracy is not functioning the way it ought to function.
Are you on good terms with the MCE?
Oh, certainly. It's not the MCE. The municipal assemblies have nothing by way of authority over that road.
So they say.
Medina, yeah, it's not they. It's a fact. Medina and Adenta, they don't have any authority over that road. That road is strictly within the purview of the highways.
The MCE says he's also writing. He's written several letters.
He's doing a lot. He's written. You see, we are working behind the scenes. That's why I said that I'm a politician. I want to be voted for. You think it's pleasant? I'll be sitting back and wallowing in laziness and ignorance whilst things happen that could cost me votes? No politician will be happy to see his votes burn. No politician will be happy to see his votes burn. I am there trying to work as assiduously as possible to get that resolved. It is a necessity that it is resolved. So how we get a slow bureaucracy to move to the point where bureaucratic consciousness focuses on ensuring at least a certain level of safety on that road is where we are at now. How do we ensure that the already installed short-term measures, the traffic lights, work? When the traffic lights work, people obey the traffic lights. It slows traffic down. It removes the uncertainty at where you say we lost 2 more lives. SD, where there's uncertainty there about who should turn into whose lane and who should cross. It's a very complex road. It's 6 lanes. They are crossing into each other's paths. It's very, very complex. So where there are no traffic lights at that place, it's a disaster. And traffic lights have been installed. They are damaged. So what happens? Once they are damaged, that's it. What is the bureaucratic chain? Should somebody pay for the damage? If the person is to pay for the damage, how do you identify the person? Who are the agencies involved in identifying and following up and installing a replacement? Because these are maintenance issues. These are post-accomplishment issues. You have achieved something. At least I helped to bring the initial traffic lights. I thought I had achieved something. But now we have a situation where it's not even being maintained. And it's not there anymore. It's there, it's not functioning. Some have been knocked down and otherwise. Then you have the lights, which will serve for the evening. I mean, the lights are so dense that if they are all switched on, the road will look like daytime. And it helps, because somebody crossing will at least see, and somebody driving will also see. Now, the lights are off and on, and there are many, many gaps where some are more functioning and otherwise. Those are short-term measures.
We heard today, and let me perhaps you haven't received this update, but I've been saving it for you. There's a 3-month time frame for the footbridges to be constructed. Does that satisfy you as a response?
I cannot, because I haven't been informed formally by anybody that there's even that kind of situation.
This is information that came from the MCE.
Very well. I'll have to talk to the MCE, because if it came this morning, then I haven't had it. Maybe he also received it very late and communicated it to me, because I haven't had the privilege of meeting him for the past couple of days. I've been a bit out of Accra. Yes, but if he has that information, I'll follow up and find out where the source is, because I have other bits and pieces. We need to keep piecing information together. We need to keep piecing information together, from the ministry to highways to other agencies.
Speaking of your being out of Accra, your constituents, and I spent quite a bit of time there, complain they don't see too much of you these days.
I hope they will see a lot more of me going forward. Maybe tonight they will see me and you.
You're watching on City TV with the Member of Parliament for Adenta, the Honorable Buabeng Asamoah. We're discussing the issues on the Medina Adenta Ebri highway. He has explained his part, what he is doing and what the situation as it pertains is on that particular stretch of road and within his constituency. When we return from our break, we will delve into the NPP, of which he is the communications director, as well as a bit of politics within the Adenta constituency. Keep watching Face to Face.
Wherever the weekend sporting action happened, we will bring it to you here on Scorecard. Every goal, every dunk, every punch, the winning strides, and the winning volleys.
International media, he said, look, wait, sit and wait. Let me have a meal with my people. And I think that's the same cool, it's the same organization he brings to the field every time I've seen him play. He looks to me like somebody who's played over 50 caps already. Okay. But this guy has barely played over 25 caps for the national team.
All of the weekend's action in one place. Scorecard, every Sunday at 8 p.m. prompt on City TV.
Welcome back to Face to Face, where we are speaking with the Honorable Buabeng Asamoah, Member of Parliament for Adenta and Communications Director for the NPP. It's a strange combination. It's a strange task you decided to give yourself, is it not? Member of Parliament who has to serve his constituents, NPP Communications Director, official voice of the political party that forms the government. How do you manage this? Dangerous combination, some would say.
Well, not necessarily. Novel combination, I would say. But first of all, it's a privilege. It's a huge privilege, and I'm humbled by it because the people of Adenta voted for me to present them in Parliament on the ticket of the party. It is the party that brought me to the people of Adenta, and they accepted the party's choice and voted for me. So the people of Adenta deserve the best service that I could give them. That show of confidence that they have is something I must keep fighting to retain. Whilst here, the same party that took me to Adenta then decides that they want me to speak for the party as its Director of Communications. I think it's a major honor, even though an onerous privilege, and it is for me to demonstrate my readiness to meet both roles. My analysis of it is that if I speak for the party, generally, I ought to be seen as speaking for Adenta as well, in particular. Because most of the themes that the party will be concerned with are cross-cutting and are matters that impact Adenta. But there is also a runoff where there are peculiar issues that happen in Adenta and which I must be able to address. So at some point, I must be able to qualitatively spend my time on the party affairs, which reflects well on Adenta, and then beyond that, within Adenta, to do the behind-the-scenes internal things. The cross-cutting issues that affect everybody, of course, we've been talking about it this morning. Infrastructure. If the government has a plan for infrastructure, it ought to impact Adenta. As I speak, the government has approved over 11 roads to be constructed within Adenta,
which have some of the worst roads in the capital.
Yes, we have 664 kilometers of road within that compact space. 664.
Can you highlight some of the roads that are going to be fixed?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay,
I'll share a few. And out of the 664, only 149 are paved. So you can imagine the challenge. Everybody meets me and says, MP, if you don't do my road, I'm losing, you are losing. And so you can imagine.
On our breakfast, we get a lot of Adenta roads
coming in. Because every single road in Adenta passes in front of somebody's house. That's a peculiar situation. If it was a rural constituency, you could travel, say, 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, and not see a household. In Adenta, anytime you move your car, you are passing in front of somebody's house. That's the challenge I have. And all these bad roads are in front of people's homes. Now, you can see that there's a major one going on the School Junction to Otano stretch. Yes, that's a major one. Then I am reliably told, because it's not, I have to be circumspect, that School Junction to Reese Junction will have an asphaltic overlay. Right? Then, again, I'm reliably informed that an asphaltic overlay of the flats, the Snett Flats area, has been approved and will happen. I am reliably informed that Container to Lakeside, one of the most notorious roads in Adenta constituency, passing through New Adenta, the state housing concentration, if you know Adenta well, it's a place called Container. It comes off from the Adenta shopping mall area, goes through, very terrible, and then to Lakeside. Yes, that is also on the cards. Yes, and then there's one that passes through the Adenta village, Mamomo, from New Aviation. You are familiar with Adenta? Yes, Aviation Road, where it terminates at the back. Will continue and exit at the Goyle on the highway, on the Obri Highway. You see the picture? Yes. There are others. There are about 11 in all that I hope will all come on stream. But it's quite comprehensive, and at least it will put out the main arteries for a start. Once we get those arteries going forward, the longer the government stays, the more likely we can deal with the secondary ones, and then probably tertiary ones, which are going into very, very small areas. So there is a program for the roads, and I'm happy that we are a very large part of that. It's so unfortunate that this is going on the other side. So the roads infrastructure is cross-cutting. Employment is cross-cutting. So Adenta has had its share of NAPCO. Oh yes, oh yes. The Adenta economy is going to benefit from the NAPCO economy. So you have over 350 previously unemployed graduates in Adenta who are going
from
to
your constituency.
Yes.
Did you facilitate this yourself?
Certainly. Certainly, I was part of the process. So it's a national program that has impacted on Adenta. So there are things that the government is doing that speak to the people of Adenta as well. For example, the issues with banking. There are also people in Adenta who are bankers, who also bank, who save their money and all that. So when the government is doing something about banking, the government is resolving the issues of banking and borrowing money, heavy sums of money, to invest and stabilize the financial sector, then obviously, if I speak to those things, it means I'm speaking for Adenta as well, because there are people in Adenta who are affected by that.
The people of Adenta understand this explanation you are giving? Because like I said, when I went there, they said they don't see you. The campaign time you were in everybody's house.
The people of Adenta deserve to see me. It is my duty to try to use any means possible for them to see me. Any means possible, including your platform. Obviously, being in government changes things. At the time we were campaigning, like it or not, the reality is that we were in opposition. So we had time on our hands. And we worked very hard to convince the people of Ghana to have confidence in us to come into power. Probably this election was the one where most Ghanaians were involved, considering the antecedents, Supreme Court, the issues about being active at polling station level and all that. So many individuals got involved in bringing us to power. They served at polling stations, they supported their local party organization, they mobilized themselves, they invested their money without even necessarily meeting any serious political actor, whether the MP or otherwise. And now the government is in power. They expect to see a dividend of their investments, in the sense of their political investments. They expect to see a dividend in general conditions, be improving, or in the person they take pride in having installed, seeing them, coming to them. They deserve that. Now that we are in charge, we also have to appreciate that the nature of the party has changed. It was a party that brought us to power. The party has given birth to a government. And so the party has hemorrhaged many people into the government. And the government is busy trying to take care of us, more or less. You understand? So the party then picks itself up and reconstructs itself. Part of the reconstruction is why I'm director of communications. So now, we as a party and the main functionaries, the leadership, must then make sure we have a matrix, we have a framework, we have a process that is able to engage the people who supported us to come to power and make them appreciate that the time cannot be the same as before. It will be a Herculean task to be at the level of campaigning that we were in before the election and maintain that same level. Now we are in authority, but we must find a way of qualitatively getting them to feel our presence. Yeah.
Now, in them feeling your presence, it's midterm. Do you, from where you sit as communications director, you travel a lot, you have your fingers on the pulse of a lot of people. Do you get the feeling that people are happy with your party midterm?
It's mixed. And it's very interesting. It's mixed. It goes to what I always say are the standards that people expect of the MPP. The MPP is in charge. A lot of people expect high quality things from us. Standards, ethical behavior, standards in managing government resources. The standards are very high. Now, you also have a situation where, like I said, so many people were involved in bringing us to authority. Now, you come into authority 2 years in. There are 3 critical things you have to deal with that literally you can't go back and tell the people all the time. One is that the transition is not a 16-day process. A lot of people assume that the transition is when it's handed over, and then when you come in as a new government, first you have to understand the resources at your disposal. It's not overnight. The government is a vast rabbit warren of different tunnels and caves, and
so but you don't make us aware of these things when you're campaigning. You make lofty promises, not based on proper information.
But it's not about lofty promises. I don't think our promises are lofty. We are actually meeting them. That's when I land, you realize that in spite of these things, we are still working on our promises. They are not lofty. They are promises aimed at enhancing the welfare of the people. So you come in transition, you have to come to grips with what you have. Second, you have to come to grips with the public service, civil service that you have. In other words, the orientation of the service doesn't switch immediately to your options, your views, your intendments. Not at all. They are also human. They are not supposed to be partisan, but they are human. So the transition for them is also a process. It doesn't just happen for them. It takes time. There are shifts, and otherwise there are suspicions, there are realignments. That happens. Then the third phase, which is probably the most interesting, is where you come to grips with the policies, projects, and programs that you have been bequeathed with or you've inherited, and how you merge your promises with those. Which ones do you take forward? It's about resources, it's about prioritization, it's about sequencing. Which ones do you drop, and for what reasons? Which ones tie in with what you intend to do? Which ones of yours are standalone and brand new? How do you fund them? That is why, for some of us, campaigning before, we've made remarks about being careful not to criminalize entirely everything that we meet. There's a tendency in this government, in this country, don't forget our history, where we are moving from. There was a time when we didn't have elections at all. Then we moved to the era of elections. When we were beginning with elections, there was a fear that people may not hand over when they lost elections. Now we've gotten to the point where we've had the handovers back and forth. In the beginning of the handovers, there was also a sense that whatever I came to meet must be tainted. There must be something wrong. If you have aware of that era, yes. So you dump everything or you criminalize everything.
But we are not out of that era.
So I'm saying that now it's qualitative. Now we are in a situation where you have to actually do a proper audit. We've come to a point where we even have a transition act. A transition act which is seeking to regulate the transfer of power so that you don't criminalize everything. But even in the transition act, the last time that we transitioned, there were actions that were taken that we believe went against that act. But we accepted and absorbed them anyway, because you have to practicalize them. For example, the act says that before you hand over, 3 months to the handing over period, you have to give handing over notes. And anything you propose to do after the handing over notes must be in the handing over notes until you leave. We got handing over notes. And then you get foisted with employments, the midnight employments of December, if you remember. They were not in the handing over notes. So whole numbers of people were giving employment letters of overnight because the government realized it was losing. They were not in the handing over notes. Salary increments, they were not in the handing over notes. Purchases, certain contracts that were given in December, well, certain purchases that were made and other commitments that were made and handed over to the government, they were not in the handing over notes. So even there's a breach of the transitional provisions. So you come in, we promised free SHS. We didn't say that because the transition was difficult, we are not doing free SHS. And free SHS, the fundamental thing is that you want to move your country to a knowledge economy with access. You want to beat the poverty trap. So what do? You allow as many people as possible to share in the commonwealth of the country, equity, so that they can also lift themselves up by their bootstraps. All the policies, the promises we made were nationalistic in character. They're designed to support the people. They alleviate poverty. Planting for food and jobs. 1D, 1F, 1 district, 1 factory.
That is being carried out in a manner only the MPP can explain.
Yeah, but you see, again, it is part of my duty to explain those things.
Explain 1D, 1F.
Because you see, you cannot populate the entire country with factories.
That is what you said when you were campaigning.
We haven't said we are not going to do it. We said we will do it. We didn't say we'll do it.
You said you will do it by 2020. We are midterm. We haven't seen 15 countries.
Is it 2020?
So you are going to put up over 100 factories by 2020.
2020.
Is that
the quality
feasible?
of our output will judge us. It's very important.
So Ghanaians should wait until 2020.
Ghanaians should give us the benefit of the governance space until 2020. That's why I said the standards for us are high. The debts we came in to meet that we are paying. If the Ghanaian says, it's hard now and all that, if we didn't realign this economy, it would be worse. When we had reached, we were at the GDP level of 73% to debt. We are literally hipping again. Why are we not confronting that fact as a people, as Ghanaians? We were epic. This is a very healthy economy that was bequeathed to a group of people who came in and simply ran the economy back down. We were epic, literally, when we took over. Now, we are restoring our ability.
So we have moved from 73 to where now?
We are now below 70. We are at about 69, between 67 and 69.
And you are heavily borrowing as well.
In spite of that, because the borrowing is not just mere borrowing. The borrowing is...
said this before.
Yeah, I'll explain. One, we had to borrow to reprofile the debt because it was not sustainable. We had to actually borrow to reprofile the debt. How do you reprofile the debt? You restructure the terms.
Mahama says time has exposed you.
Don't bring Baba, don't bring. I don't.
No. Because he said that you accused him of borrowing excessively. Here you are borrowing, and you are redefining the kind of borrowing you are doing.
If you want a conversation about incompetence, let's go there. I want a conversation about the MPP. If you want a conversation about incompetence, let's abandon this lovely conversation and hit incompetence.
Let's stick with the borrowing.
Thank you.
Let's go.
I'm telling you that we had to borrow to reprofile the 122 billion that he left behind, including the 7 billion we found out after we were in charge. We had to borrow to reprofile it, otherwise the economy would have collapsed. He left this country epic. A country he was head of the economic management team of for at least 4 years before he became president of. He had his hand on the tiller and drove this country into the ground. 122 billion cedis of unsustainable debt. we borrowed to reprofile the debt. 2, we borrowed to restructure the energy sector. When he had done so, how did he decide to manage them so? We advised him that doing so was a question of managing liquidity. You owed gas providers in Nigeria, you're not prepared to pay. You owed providers in Ghana, you're not prepared to pay. You owed providers of crude oil, you're not prepared to pay. And what was his strategy? He was bringing in plants capacity.
Did it not solve the problem?
It didn't solve the problem because it was not a capacity problem.
Ghanaians just wanted power. They have power.
Because we are in charge and we've resolved the problem. The capacity he brought, are you aware we've cancelled several contracts? We didn't need all that capacity.
So you say?
We don't need them. It's a fact.
America was to be reviewed. Here we are.
America is one of them. Car power is one of them. There are other ones. There are over 41. There are over 41. We've cancelled several. And we are going to put all those statistics out. But the important thing now is that, again, in that sector, we had to borrow over $2.4 billion to restabilize the sector and restore capacity to run the plants. And now the plants are running. And now the plants are running. We didn't need all the capacity he put in. We didn't need them. Now, we are actually supplying power at reduced rates. Not only are people getting the power, they are paying less for it. All because we are managing the sector well. It's debit. It's a credit to us. But for somebody else who may not see it in those terms, who is taking the power for granted, he will think that he has problems. That is the standards that we set ourselves. You understand? The banking sector. From 2014, the Bank of Ghana's own analysis was that they had several banks which were crumbling. The banking sector from 2014, banks were crumbling. The Bank of Ghana was aware. We were not in charge of it. We came in and decided to confront the situation head on. Otherwise, many families, in excess of over 1 million families that were banking, would go down. Crash, just like that. We had to borrow over 8 billion to stabilize that sector. We are not borrowing for fun. We are stabilizing this economy because it is necessary. Because we have high standards, because we want the best for this country, and because we are doing the best for this country. We have a program, we have a vision. We have a vision to enable this country to function and function well. Look at the 2 innovative deals we've done.
What are they?
Sino Hydro. We are taking $2 billion in a very novel arrangement. Our friends on the other side, instead of complimenting the effort, actually went to the extent of writing to the World Bank to try and damage the initiative. This is $2 billion to load up front into sorting out the infrastructure problems, rather than issuing bad contracts on cocoa bonds, cocoa roads, $5.5 billion of roads on cocoa borrowings.
But the questions raised on Sino Hydro, were they not legitimate questions? Aside the IMF issue, saying that we are basically negotiating, or we've basically reached an agreement with our Chinese partners that will give you this for this. Was this the best deal government could have come to, considering the history of the Chinese with regards to what happens in our environment, for instance?
They are the same people who brought the Chinese. That's another thing we have been bold enough to do, the Galamsey. They escalated the Chinese presence in the Galamsey. They are worried about that. Now, you want to front load infrastructure provision. You have bauxite. It is going away. You are not. Since independence, the dream of Dr. Nkrumah to have a loop which will be the base for local industrialization. Dig the bauxite, smelt it, roll it out in Valco, and supply downstream industries to produce all manner of things, including chemicals and other things. And it didn't happen because we couldn't smelt it at that time. Now we come in and say we are closing the loop. We are going to smelt so that we have a full industrial chain, and then we break one of the areas where we are just sending raw material for little money and create real genuine employment and foreign exchange resources within our country. and they don't like it.
You think it's the best deal? Process, forget about this. Is this the best deal for Ghana?
For now, I endorse that deal entirely. I endorse it entirely.
You think it is the best deal government could have made
with the bauxite? Model. Oh no! How much of the bauxite? How much of the bauxite? We have in excess of 500 billion tons of bauxite. This deal will go to just very little of that. But the importance of this deal is that it will help us to complete the loop, to bring in the infrastructure and to establish the basic schema for the full industry. That is the value of it. The second one, the other one, which is even more innovative.
You hold on. I'll let you speak about the second one when we return from our final break. You're watching Face to Face with the Honorable Buabeng Asamoah, MPP Communications Director, Member of Parliament for Adenta.
It's engaging, detailed, and loaded with factual and incisive analysis. It's The Big Issue, your preferred Saturday morning news and current affairs analysis program on City TV. Tune in this and every Saturday at 9 a.m. and hear the newsmakers discuss the top issues for the week.
At that time, Charlotte was complete. I'm not defending Charlotte. I'm talking about the way we behave like hypocrites and ostriches in this country. At that time, she was a perfect person.
It's The Big Issue with Stella Madonu on City TV. This and every Saturday at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to Face, speaking to the Honorable Buabeng Asamoah. Now, Honorable, before we went on a break, you had spoken about the first
infrastructure.
Yes. What's the second one?
The second one, which is so remarkable, it's already in Parliament, is the front loading of the GET Fund. 1.5 billion.
Excessive borrowing.
I'm still responding to that. Look, in 2008, or should I say 2007, when Nana wanted to be president, initially, one of his flagship policies was free SHS. The NDC went to town against it, mobilized people to burn coffins, burying free SHS and all that. By the 2012 election, they realized that fundamentally it was something that was resonating with the people of Ghana, because people deserve equity. Nana was showing very clearly how he was going to fund it, oil revenues and otherwise. And Boafo had discovered oil and they were benefiting directly from it. So what was their response? They then said they were going to build 200 community schools. Their community schools initiative was in direct response to Nanado's free SHS at that time. So they got the mandate again, even though we challenged it in the Supreme Court. You are aware of the famous. So they had the mandate. For 4 good years, the incompetent one couldn't deliver the schools. For 4 good years, back to the World Bank. They tell us we are borrowing. It's the World Bank resources to that support that managed to deliver complete schools, about 23 of them. The incompetent one managed to deliver a few more, so that it rose to probably in the 40s.
You are taking away credit from Mahama for building those schools.
No, I'm saying that having used it as propaganda in order to counter free SHS, he left government after all that period and wasn't able to deliver a quarter of those schools. He wasn't able to deliver a quarter of those schools.
So you've borrowed to complete those schools?
Not just those schools. Of course, wherever they are, we are working on them and continuing. It is the fact that we have in government that we are intervening that some are getting completed as we speak. But not just those schools. You need to do a comprehensive investment in that sector to take on the new policy that the president is bringing, free SHS, which is allowing... The process is not just at SHS level. It is going to be building up from kindergarten level. And people are going to flow through and get the benefit at the SHS level, finally, as basic schooling. So that at that stage, every Ghanaian should be able to appreciate the written word, calculate, go on the internet, do all the things that will make them a complete citizen and contribute wherever they are working to our progress. So here we are. If we pick that loan up, we can invest and accelerate provision of infrastructure across the entire SHS chain and improve the learning environment. Again, our friends say no, we shouldn't. Why shouldn't we? Because it's not as if it's a loan that is in abeyance. It is loans that will be secured by the revenues to the GET fund. It is so simple and so sweet. The revenues that trickle into the GET fund slowly and therefore back up the contractors and slow the processes and disable the delivery on time, those resources are now going to be used to service this, whilst this one goes to clear the backlog and develop new ones immediately, so that this project succeeds, so that our children benefit. Whose child should stay at home and not go to school and wait for infrastructure? I want our friends to answer that question. Whose child should stay at home? Are any NDC MPs, NDC functionaries advising their children, their nieces, their nephews to stay at home until all the infrastructure is done? And do they expect the infrastructure to be done on the inflows, natural inflows on the GET fund as they had it before and couldn't do anything about? But for the World Bank, they couldn't have completed one e-block. Only the World Bank ones were fully completed. So if we have this innovative strategy, front load resources and invest in delivery infrastructure and use the receipts that are coming in slowly to offset it, how do you resist such an innovative process to develop and create infrastructure? It is unimaginable.
Let me ask you this. Your party campaigned on the back of corruption in the Mahama government.
Yes.
In fact, you made your bones as an anti-corruption campaigner. For some strange reason, all of you keep ending up in politics and government. I'll ask you about that later. And you somehow seem to lose your vim from your anti-corruption days when you enter into government and politics. But your followers, a lot of them, are beginning to say that mid-term, you have been unable to prosecute fully any member of the NDC, or been able to prove in a legal court any of the allegations you made. I spoke to a member of parliament from the other side who said, you said your party accused the former president of owning property in Dubai. Where is the property? You are in government.
Super.
All these allegations are not coming to, and it has become perhaps even a point of conflict between the party and its grassroots followers who are saying, where are the people you said you will prosecute for us? It was at the heart of your campaign message. Where are the prosecutions?
This is one of the most important questions that we face as a government and as a society. I try to recall the Supreme Court Justice in America who was asked to define obscenity. And what is obscene? He said, we can't quite put it in words, but when we see it, we know it. Corruption it's almost like that in our society, where it is obvious that certain things stink. Now you come in and you try to prosecute those things that stink, and then you go in and you come up against the legal standard, the quality of the contracts that have been made, watertight contracts, processes that have been followed, and yet it smells of corruption. It's a big challenge. You talked about my corruption credentials. On the contrary, I haven't lost my vim. I went into the executive branch of government to see if something tangible could be done about corruption, because I got frustrated in civil society shouting about corruption. You come in and you realize that there's a certain sense in this country, if you don't break, of a community of silence on the real imports of this problem. Now, one of the most important things this government must do and ought to do is to invest heavily in investigations.
The special prosecutor is not enough. Police is not enough.
The
Yoko is not enough.
special prosecutor needs investigations. Yoko needs investigations.
They don't have enough.
See, they don't have enough. I don't think they have
Financial
enough.
Intelligence Center don't have.
I don't.
CID don't have.
In fact, the more institutions we create, the less we have of the best. Because you need experience, you need specialist training. Look, today's financial crimes. Tracing is an art. Today, in today's world of contracts, procedures, otherwise, inflating contracts, under-declaring contracts, shaping contracts, international contracts, where huge procurements, where the corruption tends to be very, very rife. Tracing, investigation is an art, and a high art at that. We need to invest in a crack group of people. Some young, some in the business already, some going on. For that pool to serve all these agencies you've spoken about.
When will this come to fruition to live up to your campaign promises?
Again, there are cases in court already. This is a gap that I'm seeing. Oh, opening is in court. NCA, the issues in NCA are in court. Yeah, there are issues in court. It's not just about going to court. It's about making sure that you go to court and have a prosecution that succeeds. And if you go to court and you don't have a prosecution that succeeds, it means you've wasted your time, you've dented your credibility.
Your followers are not buying this message, Honorable.
And
I'm sure you've been hearing this every time you go out.
It is the duty of our followers to determine whether or not we are being candid with them. That's why I'm saying there's a community of silence that we must break and break through. If we don't confront the question of corruption and its control effectively, it's not rhetoric. The president promised something very specific, and he has achieved it. The president promised that he was going to establish an office of special prosecutor. He has achieved it. He has established
an office of the special prosecutor sitting in a wheelchair.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying. That in delivering the office, the president didn't add that he was going to give him 10 prosecutors, 5 investigators, 6.
Where was the commitment? It wasn't genuine commitment then.
Now that the office is there, the first commitment, the biggest genuine commitment, is the head of the office, who puts in quotes, dare I use the word opponent or adversary or enemy, in charge of corruption against him. Who? The president couldn't be better committed. But we need to get the system resources that he needs out of the system, and with extra investment which may not even be easily found.
Honorable, your party went to the campaign grounds a year before the elections. In fact, I recall your party going to the US. You've presented international papers on the office of the special prosecutor. You now come into office, you name a special prosecutor, fail to provide him with the requisite resources he needs, and you are saying that is showing genuine concern, commitment. No, I am saying that you have left him limping. No, I'm saying you have left him limping.
Who tells you that he will not go? He is not going to deliver on his mandate?
Mid-term.
Please, we have put that office in place. Did we put him in place the first day we arrived?
Special prosecutor was perhaps the second biggest promise you made after free SHS.
We have made it. It is between the government, it is between the Attorney General, it is between the special prosecutor to deliver on the mandate. And I can assure you that we will see that mandate being delivered on. The president's commitment to anti-corruption is 100% and over.
2020 MPP is returning.
2020, I am sure, as the benefits of our good governance flow through, getting towards Christmas and into 2019, there will be no doubt that we'll return in 2020. Not only in 2020, I expect the kind of institutional reforms that we have to stand. And therefore, it's imperative that we work hard enough and come back in 2024. Otherwise, if we leave this government in the hands of the incompetent one, he will endanger free SHS. He will endanger all the major programs we are having. He will endanger the debt profile. He will come back and he will run a wreck through whatever we are trying to re-establish.
Thank you very much, the Honorable Buabeng Asamoah, Member of Parliament for Adenta. It's been a pleasure speaking to you on Face to Face. We'll have you back another time. He's a man who has a lot to say, and we will talk about your anti-corruption days. I'm very interested in that. You must make special time for myself for one of these days to discuss anti-corruption. Himself and Daniel Batida, we'll ask them how they both ended up, two of our foremost anti-corruption campaigners, how they ended up in the executive branch of government. My name is Godfred Akoto, Boafo. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the show. Have a good day.